Hello and welcome to a special video. I've got a guest sitting beside me here virtually. A good friend of the channel, hangs out all the time and makes excellent content as well. A lot of you may know him as Samik's Football. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Looking forward to this a lot.
Dude, I wanted to I've been dying to get on with you to talk to you a little bit about the panic that's going on in the fan base,
Yep.
with Ruben Amorim and with our results. So the first thing I want to hit you with, because I was there today at the United View where you were on as a guest, and you guys were, you were the only one to me that sounded patient and reasonable. And it just feels like the European fan base, even the comments that I get in my channel coming from outside of North America just feels a little more impatient, a little more panicked. They don't like the way Ruben Amorim conducts his interviews when he's being emotional. And me being from North America and being American and just being used to American sports, I like it, because it feels less political. It feels less like he's biting his tongue or saying the right
Hmm.
things. It just feels real.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear your because I talk to people from outside of North America through comments and texts. You've been interacting with them like literally on videos and
Yeah.
things of that nature, and it seems genuine too. It doesn't seem like they're doing it for clickbait. It doesn't seem like they're
No.
hunting clicks. Like it really seems genuine that they don't see the progress, and to me, that's a little mind blowing, right? Like,
Yeah, well, it is, and it's really interesting you talk about that because I remember a few years back there was a few things that happened, and I was so shocked that they became like such big issues. Like a manager would make like a comment about a player, and people would be like, "Oh my god, like he said this horrible thing," and the manager's like being so harsh on the player or something like that. They'd be making doing something like that, and I'm looking at it like, well, hang on a second, like this is normal. I expect to hear all the time in the US, like coaches talk about players, talk about things they're struggling. Like it feels
right,
like, a coach in the US and the NFL or the NBA would say, "Hey, that guy's he's struggling with a shot right now." And
right,
it's nothing. It's an
right,
everyday comment.
right,
It's an
exactly,
everyday thing. It's not throwing them under the bus. It's not like putting them in, on blast or anything. But then it'll be like you get this idea like anytime a manager or coach says something in football or Amorim is like, oh yeah, XYZ player, this that they need to that it's like this like huge thing. And it's so strange for me. And I don't, from what I can gather from Portugal, it's normal there too to just talk openly and freely with the press about everything that's going on, about players, about situations, about this and that. And like it's just approached in a very open and emotional setting, and this is just who these guys are. I mean, it's why you get guys like Jose Mourinho who come from Portugal. Like that's how because they learn it's okay there. That's how they do it,
right.
and it seems almost more similar to what we see in the States in terms of how they speak and talk and approach things. And so I do find that interesting, the uproar that comes about the emotion and things like that. I love the honesty. I would sit there and have arguments about why I like the idea of having halftime interviews because I used to watch Inside the NFL on HBO for years and years and years, and they would have, and it's like I always wanted to catch up on like what are people thinking, what are they feeling in the moment. I love that stuff because I think it brings you closer to getting to know people instead of this pure like guarded, I don't even know what you would call it, sense of the players and the manager that they're like this like elevated person that we can't get near, that we don't know what they're really like, and they're always have to be on guard. Like it's an interesting dynamic. I'm not sure what to make of it.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%, right? Like, I remember, I'm a little bit older than maybe some of our viewers, and I remember back when the Chicago Bulls were winning everything. I was a big Chicago
Yep.
Bulls fan, and then when Dennis Rodman would go missing, Phil Jackson didn't cover up for him. He'd be like, "Dennis is out partying." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Dennis is out partying. Michael's got to go to Vegas and drag
Yep.
his ass back to practice. Like, it's
Yep.
normal. You don't cover up and you say like, "Oh, this player is actually at home sick," when he's not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. And like you said, I do want halftime interviews. I don't want a halftime performance by Shakira. Don't get me wrong, but I
No.
want a halftime interview. I
Yeah.
want to know that the manager's feeling what I'm feeling. And that's the other
Mhm.
thing. If we just had a bad half, I don't want the manager to come out and go, well, it's all right. You know, we're gonna do. I don't want a political answer. I want him to be as
Mhm.
upset as me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I want to be like, oh, he's gonna go in that locker room and he's gonna break another TV like he did last season.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And I don't get it with some of the fans that are like, I can't believe he said that. He thinks like me. Why would I want a manager who thinks like me? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you why would you be anti that? Like, why would you want
Yeah.
a manager who's not emotional, right? Like,
Yeah.
and always giving political answers, then you never really know what's going on. And if you don't really know what's going on, how can you trust the process?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
that's where that's a great segue into trusting the process. What do you think of the process so far? And what makes you feel like it's okay to trust it? Like what? Because I know I was on one of your video streams, and I'm sorry to bring to call you out a little bit, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
was on your video stream after the Grimsby game, and I was like
Yeah, I
telling,
lost it. Yeah.
and I super chatted because I want to make sure you read it, and I said that if this was Ruben's sporting team, they would have beat Grimsby by 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So how could it be a
Sure.
manager or a tactical problem? Because to me, that's a logical argument to make. If
Yep.
everybody's going to tell me the manager is bad, the tactics are bad, well, same manager, same tactics, different squad would have beat this team by 3 or 4. So the math doesn't add up if you're going to blame it on the manager and the tactics. But it wasn't. It was right after the Burnley game. I saw you have a big turnaround. Actually, I really. This is a shameless plug. I really, well, not even a plug. This is just me saying something really nice about your last video, the one you made solo with the pictures you showed at the Burnley game.
Yep.
Um, and you saw it clearly. You saw everything that I try to explain clearly in that game. I haven't even made a video for that game, so I might end up stealing some of your ideas
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Of
But
course.
you saw it clearly what's happening, and I've been trying to preach that, if you will.
Yep.
But you explained it in your own words. What has made you trust in the process? What is me? I saw you today really, really on that United View channel talking about how you think we're going to finish in the top 5. Is that right? Is that what
Mhm.
you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So what has made you come to that conclusion a week after Grimsby?
Yeah, well, it's a kind of thing where with Grimsby, it's kind of an emotion. It's definitely an emotional response, and it's like I look at obviously, Amorim's talking afterwards, like he hates this and it's this and that, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that. And in a moment, I'm thinking, what's going on here? Like, why can't you get the players up for Grimsby? Right? Why can't why does that not happen? I still was saying in the time afterwards, like to me, it wasn't about the system, it wasn't about the tactics. Even in the comments I made during the game when I was pissed off, it was like it's more. I was more worried. Why can't they get up for this game? Like, why were they so unfocused and so unprepared and so like beaten by emotionally, physically, mentally by a fourth tier team? Like that to me doesn't make sense. But then I look at that and I go, and what made me think of it when I kind of calmed down is I thought this is my own trauma with United, and I've talked a lot about this. Like, and people do get this, but like there's you get two different schools of thought about this, and people go one way or the other. There's people who think like most people, they get beat up, they go through bad things, shit happens, and they come out at the end of it better. That's not true for most people. There are people that can deal with that. There are some people, and it's like they the worse things get, they can come out of it better. At least on the surface, it looks that way anyway. For most people, the more bad experiences you compound, the worse things get for them. And the more likely they are to relate what's going on now to those past bad experiences and connect the dots between them and have it mentally affect them. So then I realized I was looking at it, I was like, what happened to me is so many years of trauma of like, how does this keep happening? Where I'm thinking this happened before, it happened before, it happened before, and you just end up with a huge like emotional response. And I look at the team and I think, and I thought about it and I was like, wait a second, like if I look at in some ways like not picking on these players by the way, because I don't even mean to, but if I look at who really messed up in those games, it's a lot of guys who've been here a while. And even what we've seen in the season, a lot of the mistakes is players who've been here a while are making the mistakes. The Dallo mistakes he's making, even the Bruno and against Fulham and the goalkeepers. And it's guys who've been through a lot of bad at United. And sometimes when a little thing goes wrong, we saw this a lot last year. One little thing goes wrong and it's like the rush comes in and it's like, they lose their head. Like Bruno gets bumped by the ref. It's the stupidest little thing. But then you start to understand it and it's like, it's just something's not going right and they connect it. And so I looked at that and I was like, okay, to me, that's what happened against Grimsby. It was like, for some reason, there's just this trauma that still exists. It's like this generational pain that exists around United from players who've been there a long time to players, and that needs to be fixed. And I was looking at it and I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense. At that point, you could turn over a manager and nothing's going to happen. And then I thought the only thing I could actually come to a conclusion on for United to be consistent in the end is that in the long term, the whole squad has to be turned over. We look in the back and it's like as above, so below, the whole executive structure turned over. The whole management structure turned over. All the staffing essentially turned over. Like there's a lot of people who left, a lot of people made redundant, but also a lot of people hired, even in positions that weren't made redundant. It's just turned the whole thing over because it's like, what's that? I don't remember the phrase, but I've used it before. I don't remember the thing, but it's that ship, whatever it's called. Like you replace all the different all the pieces, replace all the planks, is still the same ship afterwards. And the truth of the matter is it isn't, right? It's still Manchester United, but what is Manchester United? Well, it's a summation of all the people within it, right? And what they keep doing and what they carry forward and all that. And then there's all the history involved. And it's like, if you end up replacing all of that, you should be able to get over the things that have happened and the things that have occurred. And that's a very long-winded philosophical answer about what happened against Grimsby, because I thought this is just, this happens. I mean, it's happened to a lot of teams. It happened to Liverpool. They lost to Plymouth. Someone pointed that out. Like, while they were very good, they lost to Plymouth, and it's like these things do happen once in a while. But then for me, it was always about what happened then in the Premier League against Burnley. And the reason I was very, very encouraged by Burnley is that it wasn't because of Burnley. It was because, like, I did the video where I talked about what I thought was going wrong before the game against Arsenal, what was going wrong in preseason. And I looked into it and I was like, what's not working here? And then they played Arsenal and that was fixed. And they played well. And then we went into Fulham and it was a weird game, but I looked into it and I was like, okay, that thing they fixed before is still fixed. What went wrong here? And I was able to see, based on understanding the way that Amorim wants to play, this is what was going wrong. It's there. The opportunities were there. Everything was actually there, but the players have to learn it. I'm a big believer in the fact that what does take time is for the players to get that second nature. The speed of the game moves so fast at the Premier League level, faster than any other league. It's the same difference between why players can do well in internationals versus league, is that the game pace is so much slower in internationals. You get that extra half second to think. In the Premier League, you don't get that half second to think. It has to be instinctual, it has to be instant. That takes time to learn, where not just you, but where the other guy is going to be too. You both have to be in tandem on that. And it's like a big dance of moving parts all together. And I saw that against Fulham and I said, well, the things were there, but the wrong decisions were made. So I was like, all right, will we fix that or not? That becomes a serious question. Didn't know. Then against Burnley, when I watch it and I said, okay, we're back to the Premier League. I watched it and I said, oh, and that's what I broke down in the video. The same things that we were doing against Fulham, we did against Burnley. It's actually an identical game in many respects. The same way Burnley defended us was what Fulham did that supposedly worked. The only difference is the players made better decisions. They were getting it. They fixed it. The same as De Ligt fixed, from the preseason game against Everton, not following Beto up when he dropped in and he started stepping up. He's fixed that. He's been incredible to start the season. And I'm like, I'm seeing us actually objectively fixing the things that are not working while maintaining an idea. When it doesn't work, we don't just jump to the next idea. Didn't work, we'll try something new. Didn't work, we'll try something new. We're saying, did we execute? and then fixing the execution, because there's an idea and there's execution. And I think a lot of times what gets lost in the shuffle is, which is the problem? Is it the idea or is it the execution of the idea? If it's the execution, it's time, it's training, and it's players. And if it's the idea, then it's the manager. And what I looked at is I said, the idea produced a bunch of opportunities against Fulham that we didn't take advantage of. And the idea, when executed, produced tons of chances against Burnley, as it should. And that could have been Fulham with the right decisions being made on the pitch. So it made me feel good to see the continuity. I think that's the main thing. Like, I know what I'm looking for to measure whether United are doing a good job or not. And when it's executed, it is working. And that tells me the system is going to work. The idea is going to work. It's just a matter of execution and time. And I think that we have really good football players. They've not always fit together at United. And I've got my criticisms of plenty, but I also look at it and I'm like, Mbumo, Ahmad, even like Xerxes, Mount, Cunha, Bruno Fernandes, these are really good footballers. Like, objectively, no matter what you think, they're really, really good footballers. And I have faith that they'll get it together when the idea is consistent and right, and they'll start executing. And I think against Burnley, we started to see that. Ahmad really got going more. Mbuma was flying. Bruno was getting it. He was really getting it for the first time I've seen him actually fully get it in that deeper role. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of the on-field evidence. And, the stats kind of back it up, but that's why, really.
Yeah, and I want to say to the people who may not be familiar or maybe a little bit confused about some of the things that you just said, I just want to tell them that, like, what he's talking about there is stuff that he's covered in his past videos. I've covered in my past videos about exactly what it is the system's trying to do. And if I should just summarize it really quickly for anybody who hasn't
Yeah.
seen your past tactical videos or mine, it's just that 3-4-3 shape that everybody wants to complain about that doesn't actually stay as a 3-4-3 shape, but it's designed in a way to drag the opposing players to one side of the field, which then really opens up a ton of space on the other side of the field. And if the players make their movements, time their movements correctly, and move the ball with the right speed and the right time, there's wide open space on the other
Yep.
side of the field. That's one of his tactical nuances. Another one is
Mm-hmm.
when we're starting to pass the ball back. When we've built up, we're in their final third, but they've locked down their shape. They're defending with 5 players or whatever it is. We will start to pass the ball backwards very slowly to bait them out. And when
Yep.
we bait them out and when we get them to, like, I'm going to speak a little bit of American terms, when we get them to like the 40-yard line, if you will, right before midfield, then
Yep.
you'll see one of our wingers just take off. And then we go
Yep.
over the top for a long ball. And I really wanted to bring that up too, because I get a lot of comments that just kind of, I don't know how to answer them because I don't want to be rude and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? To like the
Oh, yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say, like, oh, Amorim's long ball tactics are never going to work. And I'm like, dude, it's not long balls just for long ball's sake. It's not a Hail
Yeah.
Mary pass. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a long ball designed at a specific time. Don't get me wrong. Casemiro makes it look like it's designed to go all the time. And
Yeah.
Casemiro's doing it at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Casemiro's the wrong guy to look at when he kicks a long ball, because he's
Yep.
almost always doing it at the wrong time. Almost always. But when you saw De Ligt hitting Dorgu with it in the
Yep.
last game, that was the right time. That was acres of space for Dorgu. And it's
Yep.
because we're passing it back. They're wanting to bring their defensive line up. And as soon as they get to like around the 40-yard line, one of our wingbacks takes off running
Yeah.
while they're still forward pedaling. So now they have to turn around and back pedal, and it's
Yep.
too late.
Yep.
It's really good. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say tactically, because it's really hard to talk tactics when we're talking like this without
Yep.
editing them in. But that's what James is talking about. I really wish whoever's confused or doesn't agree. If you don't agree, at least know what he's talking about first. So go check out his video or mine on Ruben's tactics, or both. That'd be even
Yeah.
better.
I think
And
you'll
then,
get a good perspective from a few different angles that way.
yeah, exactly, because he will say things differently than I do. And
Yep.
actually, sometimes I watch his video and I go, damn, I wish I said it like that, right? And I'm sure it's vice versa
Yep,
sometimes.
for
So it's
sure.
it's good to watch it from both perspectives, because no one's ever gonna like Ruben Amorim's never gonna come out and go, "Here's the blueprint." You've got
Yep.
to watch it for yourself, and honestly, it takes us hours. I know James
Oh, man.
has to
Yep.
watch it. Yeah, I have to dissect a game, push pause, rewind, watch it again. A certain play. I'm like, why is this happening? Especially when a player's out of position.
Yep.
Especially when a player's out of position, I have to watch it again and I go, why would the manager want this? And then it's 10 minutes later, I see the same pattern and the player's not out of position. And I go, oh, the manager never wanted that in the first place.
Yeah.
Casemiro was just, whoops, I shouldn't have said a name. But
Yep.
it's just passing it the wrong way
Yep.
or going with it the wrong way. And I think that's the biggest challenge. And that's when you know that the players are not in tune yet. The fact
Yep.
that I have to rewind to try and understand
Yep.
is a function of telling me something's not right and it's not
Yep.
the manager. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
um, I got to watch a couple of sporting games before he showed up, more than a couple. I never had to do that. You know what I mean? I
Correct.
never really had
Really
to
easy
pause
to
it.
understand it once
It
the
was
when it was at
super
Sporting,
easy.
it's like, "Oh,
Super
it's
easy.
so obvious," but really hard to defend. It was surprisingly difficult for teams to deal with.
Which is why okay, so that would be my answer. Like if
Yep.
the question I asked you about like what makes you feel so positive about what's happening. My answer is because I understand what he's trying to do. I don't from a coach's perspective, you can talk to me about any manager and I can give you somewhat of an idea of how to defend it. Do you
Mhm.
get what I'm that doesn't mean
Yeah.
it'll be defended, like, perfectly. It doesn't mean you'll
Yep.
win every game, but this is a way to kinda lock it down or at least control what that manager's trying to do. When you talk to me about Ruben Amorim's tactics run perfectly, there's wide play, there's central play, there's, short passing and patterns, there's long balls and patterns. Like, you're just sitting there going like, "What do you do?" Like,
It
what
has a
one
lot of variation in it. It actually really does. Yeah.
Which is why it's gonna take time, James. This is
Yep.
why you can't expect someone like Bruno, who's been told to basically take over games by every manager we've had.
Yep.
That's how I feel. I feel
Yep.
Bruno's been told, "Take over the game," like, "Do something." And then you've seen Bruno tell people like Marcus Rashford or whatever, "As soon as I touch the ball, I want you to go,
Mhm.
because I'm gonna hit
Yeah.
you with it," right? That's the kind of I hate to say it, but simple-minded tactics my players is what I was about to say. Our players have been having to deal with, and now
Yep.
we've got somebody who's going, "No, in this situation you're going to do this. In this situation you're going to do this, but then in this situation I do want you to go long."
Yep. Yep. And
And
he was
they're
getting the
compete
balance right against Burnley, but there's games he's not getting it right. Yep.
right. Right, but it's not only him too, it's the runners
Yep.
too, right? The
Yep.
runners have to know, when do I check back? Oh, when do I go? And
Yep.
and that's what I find Ahmad struggling with. Against
Yeah,
Burnley, it
with
was
him between
better.
him and Mbumo trying to coordinate that properly. Because like you say, the biggest feature of the system and what makes it so hard to deal with in a really, really basic nutshell is that you have two guys out wide, usually against one defender. And
Mhm.
when that in the 10 drops and the wingback goes, or vice versa. And when that happens, it's really hard to defend, especially if you've moved them. And that's the thing you'll look for when it's really working. You'll see the 10s dropping and the wingbacks going, and you'll see the pass going to them. And that's where it can be long ball, but it's very intentional. And it's not a hopeful ball. People think of long ball sometimes as, just Dyche Burnley ball, like just launch it and use a big guy to knock it down. It's quite different. I use it every video. It's so painful to constantly bring it up, but I use it every video and I compare it to Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool because he played a lot of intentional long balls, especially early on, to get them quickly into transitions when the defense is not ready, using those wide players because he didn't have a serious striker and a traditional number 9 to play through the middle and Firmino. It was a lot of funnel to the middle and then get it long and out wide quickly to get your wingers into 1v1 situations, and you hope for the quality to work out there. And it's a lot of that, and it has real intentionality to it, but it's also matches. One of the other things there is it kind of matches the current direction of football, which went really slow and tiki-taka and has now ramped back up into the most intense transition-based football that it actually has ever been.
Yeah, I think that the man-to-man pressing has grown so much in the last 3 seasons that
Yep.
I think that even Pep Guardiola is having a little bit of a problem with it, that
Mhm.
he's trying to figure out. That's why he brought in new coaches. I think he's trying to figure out what's the next evolution of tiki taka, because tiki taka is going to
Yep.
have to evolve into something.
Yep.
Tiki taka was based on strict formations, positional play, and you're going to outnumber your opponent in every area of the field. Well, you're not going to outnumber your opponent if he's saying, every one of your men is guarded by a man of mine.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, you
you know what
can't
I mean?
outnumber him that way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how are you going to outnumber us? So now he's going to have to figure out something else, right? Whatever the next evolution is. And I'm sure he will. He's a genius. But we have a man who's going, whether you're going man to man or not, I'm going to overload you centrally,
Yep.
right? That's why I only have two wing back, like a wing back on each side. I don't have a winger and a wing back. And then my 10
Yep.
is going to roam around the center. And if need be, he'll go to the outside. But I'm going to
Yep.
overwhelm you centrally so that all your players are collapsing in. And then I'm going to move you to one side. And then
Yep.
once I move you to one side, I'm going to switch it over to the other side and it's going to
Yeah.
be 2-on-1.
It's
It's
beautiful. I
it's
love it.
awesome. It's awesome. But like when it's not done right, you know, that's when the fan
Because
base
it
has
kind
gone
of
crazy.
baits pressure in a way. It almost baits you into a situation where you're playing in a very clogged area, and the key is, can you do it right to get it out of there
Out of
quickly? Because
exactly, get
then
it
you have your advantage. But if you don't do it right, it looks like you're constantly just playing into a mess of players that's
a
never gonna
hun
get you anywhere.
100%. I call it the exit pass. Like in my
Yeah.
videos, I say, and then you got to look for the exit pass and hit the exit pass.
The big
And if
switch is my thing. I call it the big switch always.
yeah,
It's the big switch.
yeah, and then if it's a switch to the CB, I call it the CB switch,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times Lenny Yoro just gets that ball with acres of space, and
Yeah.
now last game you saw Luke Shaw
He
getting
was
it with
going.
acres of space.
Yep.
It was great. I can't wait for Sandro Martinez to come in and do that.
Yep.
Um, so my next question to you would be, how do we how do we get people to understand that these stats are not by accident, right? Because we are first in the league in shots. Hold on, let me pull up the stats 1 second. I will edit out the empty noises here. These stats are incredible, man. Like
Mhm.
if you would have told me before the season starts that these are the kind of stats we're going to have, I would be like, no way. How are we not going to win the league? You know?
Yeah.
So the stats are first in shots, first in touches in the opponent's box, first in accurate crosses, which I can't believe because I think we have some of the most horrible crossers in the league.
I think
I'm
Mbumo's corners are doing a lot of heavy lifting on that, by the way.
for sure because Diogo Dalot still does not
Yeah.
know how to cross a ball. Second in shots on target. Because when I brought up first in shots in my last video, I forgot to bring up that we're second in shots on target, and I got 2 comments saying that it's not hard to be first in shots when you're shooting from everywhere. Well,
Mm.
we're obviously not shooting from everywhere if we're getting most of them on target, right?
Yeah, and I did look up, just by the way, it is one of the highest percentages in the league of shots inside the box as well,
That's
and one of the
crazy.
lowest from outside. So it's a lot of shots in the box that we're getting off. Yeah.
That's great. And second in expected goals. You can't be second in expected goals if you're shooting from half field,
Yep.
right? And then we got second in accurate long balls, which brings it back to that conversation me and you were having a second ago. These long balls are not these Hail Mary passes. They're by design into wide open spaces where we should be getting to that ball first. If
Yep.
done right, if it's not
Yep.
Casemiro deciding to launch it.
Yep.
And then we got fifth in possession percentage, which is, I think we could be in the top 2 of possession percentage too if we didn't make those mistakes in Fulham that we made. I
Yep.
think the Fulham game on its own dropped us to fifth. If that game was played more like the Burnley game, we would have been first or second in possession in the league. How is it that people can ignore these? Like that boggles my mind. Do you have any kind of psychological answer to? Is it just like, well, we lost.
It's
We
just
lost one
results. It's
game.
just
We
results. I
lost one
know.
game.
Grimsby throws a wrench in it because it's in the middle of all of this, you know? And it does, and people think like, "But we lost to a 4th tier side. We can't be good." But it's kind of where I was getting at, because I look at it and I'm like, if you actually contextualize the 3 Premier League games and their performances, there are a few teams that have played better, and I think that objectively, that is true. There are few teams, I mean, even Arsenal, who have more points, have not actually played better
No,
than
they haven't.
United performance game to game. Nobody has.
No.
Probably Liverpool, maybe Chelsea, but besides that, it's very, very few teams that have actually performed well over the 3-game period, and it's hard to separate that from the emotional feeling of the actual outcomes of some of the things that happened.
Yeah, and my question to any fan would be, do you want us to play like Arsenal? Because I don't. Like,
No.
I don't like their style of play. I don't like how defensive minded they are. Um, Statistically, those stats we just talked about, they're way below us. I'd rather see more shots. I'd rather see more XG than bunker down and make sure no one scores. Because I don't know. I'm very pro attractive football. I fell in love with Manchester United as a kid because of how
Yep.
attractive the football was. Um, yeah,
And look, those stats. The thing to just keep in mind here is that, look, all anyone is trying to do when you bring up these stats, when you talk about it, when I talk about it, is to say it is a good thing to be on top of these stats. Yes, it's been 3 games. So what? In those 3 games, you'd like to be on top of these stats. It'd be better to be on top of them than the bottom of them. And it's important that these are meaningful stats. In fact, when you look at the league winners for the last few years, these are the stats they're almost always on top of. Shots, XG, touches in opposition box are 3 of the most closely correlating stats to successful teams in the league. And one difference where we're not on top of the stats anymore, that was a red flag, because there was a point last year where United were in the early part of the season actually creating a lot of chances, and they were like second or third in XG, and they were getting closer on some of these stats. But in the reverse, United were first in tackles and interceptions and all the defensive stats too. Those are not stats you want to be a part of. You can think of that really logically. If you're making more tackles and interceptions than anyone else in the league, you can't do that if you have the ball. You can't do that if you're in control of the game. That's you trying to wrestle back control of the game. And it was the chaos, right? You can get a ton of shots up, to use it like basketball. It's like you can push the pace of the game in a basketball game and get it up and down the court really fast and score a lot of points and be bad at the same time. You can do that. And we were kind of doing that at one point last year early on, where we were pushing the pace of the game, attacking long balls, counters, quick, everything, getting a lot of shots. But we would, in doing so, we were always massively open to being attacked at the same time and losing the ball in areas where we struggled defensively. This year, defensively, you take away the keeper goals, United concede very little. The keeper errors, we concede very, very little in terms of control. So, they're the stats you want to be on top of either way, and it's like, if we were on the bottom of them, we would never hear the end of it, and they would be hugely negative signs. If we created imagine if we created the least XG in the league and had the least touches in the opposition box, how you'd be thinking. So why is with that would be so bad, and everybody would be freaked out about it. But if it's the reverse, isn't that a good thing?
yeah, and if we had, like you said, worst like the least XG in the league, but somehow won 2 games out of the first 3, I'd be more worried about
Yep.
where is this going to go? Like, where is this
Yep.
going? If we got a goal like Arsenal's goal against us, and that's how we won one of our games, and then we won another game 1-0, and then we drew or lost the third game, but
Yep.
and we are on 6 points, I'd be
Yep.
really worried. I'd much rather be in the position we're in now, because I think that, just like you, I think that this is just a time problem. He needs
Mm-hmm.
more time, because he thought these players would get it after the preseason. I really think he thought that. But I think he's finding out that these players have been coached not that creative. Like, they haven't been challenged to use their brains as much as they're being challenged to use
Yep.
their brains now.
Yep.
They're going to get it because they're good players, but it's going to take time, because they've been playing simple-minded football for far too long for far too many managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the one manager that we had, well, 2 managers that we had, but I'm not going to count Louis van Gaal because that was very long ago. But I think the one manager that we had that was not that long ago was Ralph Rangnick, who had some of these players.
Yep.
And he decided, I can't get these guys to think too hard, so we're not going to press, because you can't
Yeah.
press without thinking.
Yep.
You have to be
Yep.
thinking, because you got to think, am I going or not? Right? Like, because
Yep.
if you're going, you're leaving an opening behind you. You got to make sure that you're smart enough to know when to do that. And Ralph decided, like, nah, I can't do that. Like,
Yep.
we're going to lose by a lot if I do that. So I'm just not going to bother doing it. And I think that this manager is starting to find out that it's not you that they were trying to let down during Grimsby. It's just innate in them that we need to beat out of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I say
Yeah.
that in the nicest. I don't actually
Yeah.
mean beat out of. I know someone's gonna comment like, "Oh, Samix wants to beat up play." No, but it's a habit. The one thing I love data, right? In my job, I have to deal with data all the time. I don't have access to the data I wish I had. Data MB is nice. It shows us some things, but honestly, it's like surface level stuff.
Yeah. Mhm.
I want to know exactly how much ground we covered compared to Grimsby in the first half of
Yeah.
that game. I
I
would
bet it was a
love
lot
to know.
less. Mhm.
Exactly. And is that a manager issue? And some people will say it's his job to get people up to play the game. All he can do is give a pep talk, man. He can't like
Yeah.
shove fuel up their rear end. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yep.
all he can do is give a pep talk. And if it works, it works. But if you got disgruntled players, which actually brings me on to Kobe, if you've got he's just one, by the way, and I don't mean to pick on him, it's just because it's in the news, right? But I'm
Mhm.
sure there's more players that played in the Grimsby game that don't get much playing time in other games.
Yep.
And if you got these players who are like, or if you've got these players who think their talent alone is going to win that game because it's a League Two team they've never heard of. Ahmad's never heard of Grimsby, I'll tell you that, right? So if you've
Yeah,
got
I think he
Ahmad,
coasted on that game quite a
I
bit,
totally
and it
think he
bit us.
coasted.
And Ruben even commented on that in the game after Burnley. He says, "I love Ahmad, when he works hard." Basically, like when he actually does his best. He kind of made a side joke about that.
Ahmad really let me down that game. That
Yeah.
game, and I didn't even put it in my videos because I didn't want to call out on a young kid.
Yeah.
I'm saying it now because we're past it now, and he played really well against Burnley.
Yeah.
But in that game, he let me down, and he didn't
Yep.
run at all.
Yep.
When you have these players just depending on talent, I don't care how much of a what can you do in a pep talk that's gonna,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like you put them
Yep.
out and you hope they win. I always tell people that argue with me about the manager. I say things like the manager's job is to create opportunities for a win, not to actually win. That's the
Correct. Yep.
player's job. The
Yep.
player's job is to win the game. The manager's job is to create the opportunity for it. And I think he's doing that with these stats.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I would completely tend to agree, and I think that that's the end of it. And like you said, when we're talking about playing simple-minded football, I've said a lot of times recently, the worst thing that could happen is that we go back to playing pragmatic football again, because then we're stuck in a cycle. And the problem with the demand for short-term results is if you let Ruben Amorim go during this break, let's say, and you bring a new manager in, what you're saying is the short-term results are ultimately what will let you keep your job or not. Which there's a right time for that to do that. It's not now. And I know people want it to be now, but it's not now because we're not there yet. And if you do that and you let him go, the message to the next manager is you better win your games or you
Mhm.
won't be on a job either.
Yep.
And what are they going to do when they're in that position? Pragmatic football. What is the best way to win games? The best way to win games today is probably not the best way to win a title in the future. We've been doing that for 5 years now. When Ten Hag came in, it's the biggest disappointment I have, and where I can't put all the blame on him. The pressure he was under and the way that the club has been run for such a long time, where they were not willing to sweat it out, to stick it out, and to follow through, meant change. 2 games in, change. Let's play pragmatic because it's the only way these players know how to play, where we can start grinding out results right away. And we never evolved. And it's never going to be good enough to win a title that way. Sometimes the thing you do, it's hard to kind of describe this, but there's a concept of this in business too. There's a concept where you can do something and scale it. But there's another thing. Sometimes the thing you do that works good is
Is
impossible to
well, the
scale to
scale,
great.
exactly,
And you
yeah.
have to do something different to do great. You can't just do more of what was good. You have to do something totally different if you want to be great. And that's true in football as well. We've seen it with a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that have been specialists in like mid-table teams. You see it all the time. They know how to survive in the Premier League. It's not like you can just scale that into winning a title. Brentford know how to survive with the smallest budget, with everything, and they can be as pragmatic as possible. And they did really well at that under Frank. Just what is the team? What are the players that have? What can we manage with this tiny little budget? Let's get the most out of it. You can't take that and turn it into a title winning team with more money. It's never going to happen because that's not the same concept as, aiming for purely the optimum. And so that's the main thing to me where it's like you almost can't make a change in my eyes, because even if it doesn't work in the long run with Amorim, you have to get out of the short-term results era into a point where it's all there and it's all laid down, and the players can think with other concepts, and the players can do other concepts, and the players can do more complex tactics. Then it's about the short-term results. Can you get the most out of them? Can you get them winning games? Can you get them in the right position? Are your tactics good enough? But it can't be about winning when we haven't even reached the point where, I know this is unpopular to say, but it can't be about those short-term results in the end when we haven't even reached the point where they can get it. Because right now, they're not there yet. I think they're almost there. I think they are getting there. I think that in a month or two, they will be there. That's why I'm very optimistic for the season. And then I'm looking at, November, December onwards. I think we have to have a really good second half of the season, mind you. Like, my expectations are, if the second half of the season, United aren't like really good, like top four in terms of their
Yep,
pace,
yep.
then it's a failure, because it shouldn't take that. There's a time limiter to me. By that point, by Christmas, it's been 13 months. You've had enough time to get them to get
Well,
this.
I mean, when's AFCON?
Now we
Hold on.
should,
When's
yeah,
the AFCON? Hold
January.
on.
Yeah, January. Yeah.
So I would say after we get our
Yeah.
players back.
Yeah. Once
I
we
would
get
say
our
after.
players back from AFCON, yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
run-in
'cause
should be strong. That should be
yeah,
a
because it's
really
gonna be tough. No
strong
Ahmad,
run-in.
no
Yeah.
Mbumo. Like, Ahmad and Mbumo are huge right now on our
Huge.
right
Yeah.
side. They're
Yeah.
huge. Changing Ahmad and Mbumo with Xerxes and Diogo Dalot is
Not going
scary.
to be the same thing. Yeah.
No. So I would say after AFCON, I'm with you. After AFCON, I think that we're gonna win 7 or 8 out of 10 games,
Yeah.
consistently.
Yep.
Um, and I believe that. Like, I believe, like you, that it's just going to take time. And once their brains click, because once they brains click, they don't forget it. Like, once they
Yeah.
got it, they got it.
It becomes instinctual. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for them to get it. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you was, you know a lot more than me about kind of the mindset of the ownership and the management group. Do you think they have the stomach for this? Meaning, what if we lose the next the Man City game and the Chelsea game? Okay, one thing I told you earlier when we were talking is these stats that are so good, you haven't heard one pundit say them yet. You haven't heard one news outlet or media or pundit or someone famous on TV on Sky Sports say, like, oh, Manchester United is doing this great, this great, this great. All they keep talking about is Ruben Amorim the right guy, right?
Yeah.
If the stats were bad, it would have been on TV every 5 minutes, right? We wouldn't
Yeah.
hear the end of it. The only reason why we know these stats are good is because of fans like us who dig them out. Like, no one's
Mm-hmm.
plastering them all over the media, right?
Yep.
If we lose the City game and the Chelsea game coming up, it's going to be all over the news. This
Mm-hmm.
guy's not the right guy. There's going to be a million people, Simon Jordan, Roy, I don't know. Like, a bunch of people are going to say things about Ruben Amorim needing to get sacked before Christmas. Does the ownership group have the stomach to just ignore all this and stick to the program? Because we're not ready to. I'll be honest with you. I know we've had 2 weeks off, but I don't know how many of our players are there training right now compared to how many of them are on international duty. And I don't even know how hard they're training. He might be giving some of them a couple days off or whatever. I don't know we're going to have it at the City game. Like, I don't know if they're going to not make these mistakes at the City game. And I feel like City is a wounded animal right now. City doesn't
Yep.
like being in ninth place. Like this isn't something they're used to. Are they ninth or are we
I
ninth?
think they're below us, so they might be 10th or something like that
Yeah,
at this
exactly.
point.
Like
Yeah.
they're not gonna live there for too long.
Yep.
They're gonna have their turnaround, right? And this
Yep.
is at their home. It might not be a pretty game for
They're
us.
13th,
Yeah, we're ninth, right?
Yeah, we're
Um,
ninth.
and it just might not be a good game for us. Okay, no matter how much, how big of a pep talk he gives, it might not be a good game for us. Do we have this? Does the ownership group? Do you think from everything you've ever like inclination that you have? Do they have the stomach for this? Or you can even say I don't know if you want to say I don't know, but what's your instinct say?
I think they do. I think they do. I've sat down and had specific conversations with people in the summer during the tour, um, who would are anyway, just
Sure,
people,
sure. Got it. Yeah,
people,
got it.
very very specifically who would be very
Well,
cognizant of this
I'll
and
tell you something, James, and I know you don't need to hear this from me, but I think anybody who's watched you before or who's paid attention, you almost don't have to justify anything. You could just say,
yeah
"I think this," and
yeah
we're all gonna
yeah
know. You know what I mean? Like we're all gonna know
yeah
that it's coming from a real place. It's not. It's
yep
not. You're not pulling. You're not
yeah I'm not
acting like an
making it up
IT.
from nobody. Yeah
Yeah. So
yeah
don't worry about ever justify. I really don't think you need to justify any. At least not to me or my. And I'm talking to my audience. He doesn't need to justify anything to you
yeah
either. Okay.
for
Like
sure. Well, look, and part of the reason I mentioned is because I did ask this. Even I wanted to know
okay.
myself and kind of clarify that too. And I've said this before, and it's kind of an interesting thought, and it has to be taken somewhat delicately. But the reason I think they do is that as I gather it, they really don't particularly worry about fan pressure and media pressure at all. There's subjects they want fans input on, match day experience, the things that are more like how you enjoy the game itself, how you enjoy interacting with the club itself. What they don't give a damn about, honestly, is how fans feel about the football team. Because simply put, they know what they know when they look at it and they observe it from within. They have more data, they have more analysis, they know the decisions that have been made. They know what they're trying to do, they know what their expectations are, they know what they're looking for. It may not match in the beginning during the phase where we're at right now, the expectations of fans. It may not be the same thing. And so I think they do have a stomach for it. And I think they look at it in a different context because if you take fans, what's the big talking point you get? You get 28 games, 29 games, 28 points. Last season was so bad, all that, Amorim's this and that because of that. I can say for a fact they don't see it even remotely like that. In fact, to the point where it was a group decision to focus on the Europa League and kind of sack off those games, and nobody is ever going to come out and bluntly say that, but it's the truth. To say we're going to rotate, we want them to take it easy. We need to avoid injuries because if you remember, what happened was there was that international break where there was a week off, not a break even, and 3 players got injured.
Yep.
Ahmad got injured and he was almost out for the whole year, and he barely made it back, and obviously wasn't up to full fitness by the time the final rolled around. And Ugarte got injured, and somebody else got injured, and Collier got injured, and then Xerxes ended up injured against Newcastle, and players started dropping, and we were already thin, and it was like, what's the point? And so there's a 10-game stretch or 9-game stretch where they didn't win any games in the Premier League, but they know that. They knew that was going to happen. It was understood that the results in that instance didn't matter because they didn't have really much of a choice. And they said, look, it's either we play our strongest team every weekend and we go into Europe weak, or we play our strongest team in Europe every week and we go into the Premier League very, very weak. And we know that we got to rotate. And they made a call on that. And they look at it, and so they don't look at Amorim and say, oh, yeah, 28 games, 28. Because frankly, it's a crazy thing to say, but sometimes the goal isn't to win every game. It's like sometimes there's a bigger picture. Obviously, when you're sitting down to play that game, you're trying to win always. But in the bigger picture, that's not the judgment. It's like, what was last season about? And then you look at the start of summer, you're kicking out 5 players. It was a diagnosis season, essentially, that is being taken for them too. Because remember, this is the first season first year, new owners, new CEO, new director of football. They're replacing 600 people within the club at the same time, replacing all the medical team, replacing Carrington, rebuilding the manager, rebuilding the coaching staff, rebuilding the academy. It's a diagnosis season. And it's like understandable that in all of this change, we're not really focused on the results. So in respect, it's a fresh start. They feel like last season let them understand where United were at, which is what they attempted then to say, okay, that's how we're going to approach our summer window, understanding where we're at, sack off the plan to say, hey, let's get a bunch of young players and they'll be fine. No. They were like, we need established players because it's way worse than we thought in here. We need people who can hit the ground running because the young players, they're going to sink. If we bring just young players in, they are going to flounder. They're going to fail. It is not a good place for them. And so there's a lot of understanding that's been built into that. And so their view is they'll ride it out as long as they see the biggest thing that they want to see is that there is these underlying stats are almost more important to them. They even feel last season that it was getting better, even though the results weren't. And that's how I know they look at the underlying data quite a lot. Because I was told very explicitly they felt last season was actually quite a significant improvement performance wise as the season went on, even though the results didn't match up with that. And so they're going to be encouraged by the kind of results, by the kind of underlying numbers and data that we're seeing. And that's going to drive their decision more than a loss against City, a team you'd expect to lose away to, that we're not there yet, or a loss against Chelsea that you would also expect to lose against, frankly. And not that we want to, not that it's not going to like add pressure to the situation, but you don't judge your season where we're at today based on if you beat Chelsea or City. It's all the points we have to gain. So, it's more how do we do in those games? If they have monumental collapses, then the questions will arise, and it's like if there's a Premier League game against City and the players don't turn up and we get smashed and their heads all over the place, it will raise questions. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think even if we do lose, it's going to be somewhat competitive.
I think it's
And
going to be
as long
respectable
as,
too. Yeah.
yeah, if we do lose, it will be competitive. And the same with Chelsea. I mean, we usually, even last year, we had very respectable, if not positive performances in most of the big games. So in the Premier League under Amorim. So they've got the stomach to ride it out. There's a point where they'll feel it's enough time and you should have it in place. And now the results have to really start taking over. And there's a level of results expected, but that level is getting into Europe this year. That could be seventh. It could be, I think Europa would be the ultimate goal, but that could be seventh place. That could be sixth place. If they're a couple points off of sixth or seventh, they're not going to be looking to make a change, kind of regardless of if there's one bad game here or there. They're going to be looking in that respect. And I think the second half of the season is where they're really going to judge. I would be shocked if almost, obviously crazy things can happen, but I'd be shocked if there's any kind of even actual consideration for a manager change this season. And I don't think they feel that there's any sign that we're headed in a direction where it's going to be that disastrous at all.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I don't know about the management group. I agree with you in that's what I hope they're doing. I hope they're looking at the data. I hope they're looking at the statistics. I hope they're not just being emotional about it or listening to the media and everything else that will explode if we happen to lose that game 1-0. You
Right.
know, the other subject I really wanted to bring up with you before we run out of time is the whole Kobe Mainoo situation and the posting of, I forgot that movie with the drummer. I forgot the name of the
Whiplash.
title. What was it?
Whiplash. Yeah.
Whiplash. There you go. The posting of that. And what do you think? So again, this is, maybe it's the American in me. Okay. And you can give me, your ideas here. The American in me says like, bro, just knuckle down and work. And for me, watching him play in the Burnley game, did he do okay? Yeah, I thought he did okay. But did he like go in and put his stamp on put his stamp on the game and say, you're not going to put me on the bench anymore? I didn't see that fire. And the
Yeah.
American in me is thinking like, dude, you come off the bench and you go for it. You bleed on the field. You know what I mean? You leave
Yeah.
that field without being able to breathe. You
Yeah.
don't jog. You don't jog. You don't
Yeah.
jog. And that honestly, like during my watch along, I was actually criticizing him and going like, why is he jogging? He wants to play, right? Like he wants
Mhm.
to play. Like you don't jog, you sprint to you run more than Mason Mount. You at least tell the manager that if you're not going to put me in for Bruno, you put me in for Mason Mount. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where do you go ahead and piss off your viewers now?
No, it's
I
it's
mean,
it's cool. It's like, look, I like Kobe Mainoo. I think that he has obviously. I think the ideal situation is that he ends up being the guy in the long term, and I think he can be the guy in the midfield. I think he has the talent for it, but I also believe strongly, uh, very much. I've been. I'm just huge on this fact that you know, not every talented player reaches the heights that they want to, and a lot of it is self-inflicted. And it's easy to put the blame on everybody else, but like you don't watch training every week. We don't know what goes on every single week. We don't know who's actually impressing, who works the hardest, who runs the hardest, who does it. I mean, every single manager, because you mentioned Mason Mount, every single manager that has ever coached Mason Mount loves him. It's
yep,
not an accident.
yep.
Even though he can't stay fit, when he is fit, every manager puts him on the field and has a
And I,
hard time taking him off. And United are better when he plays as
correct. And
well.
and I'll also say that every single manager has commented on Bruno's work ethic,
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
much he can
Yeah.
run, how he can play all 90 minutes and play another 90 minutes if you needed him to.
Yep.
You're going up against these kind of players, right? Like,
Yep. Yeah, and that's ultimately what it is. It's like the standard has to be really high. Even though United, like one of the things that there is like, just because United are bad doesn't mean, or have been bad, doesn't mean the standard can drop when it comes to certain qualities, certain traits, certain things. It's not necessarily just about, well, you're bad, so the best, the best talent should be on the pitch at all times. If anything, even more so when you're struggling, you need guys who are leaders. You need guys who are doing everything on the pitch. And look, I think there's some debate about certain other aspects. Like, for example, we could talk about Casemiro. My biggest debate is not necessarily Bruno, because I think Bruno offers you, if he's okay, it's good. If he can do some magic in addition, he offers you a level that can elevate the team higher if he can play within the system at the same time. If you can get Bruno going, like I don't want to downplay Bruno, because I've gone back and forth on Bruno so many times myself, but like if you can get Bruno going, then but without breaking the system, without going Maverick Bruno, he can do things nobody else can do. Like I pointed in my video, one pass he made to Mbumo, which was generated by the system, but not nearly as open as it usually is.
mhm.
Nobody else in the Premier League is hitting that pass. And he gets it into Mbumo, who gets a shot off on it and maybe could score. Nobody else can do that on the and nobody else at United can do that. And I don't think anybody else in the Premier League can do that now that Kevin De Bruyne is not in his prime and is not here
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Nobody else will hit that pass, period. So he can find something, even take advantage of the tiniest crack rather than it needing to be a clear opportunity. And that's what getting Bruno going can do for you. But Casemiro is my big question there. And that's my debate where I go back and forth on the Kobe thing, is I don't see what Casemiro does better than Kobe Mainoo. Even though I think that there's things Kobe Mainoo's got to do. And I'm not a fan of the I don't want to call it a fit, but I'm not a fan of the drama after 2 Premier League games. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's a mistake. I think it's a distraction, and I think it's the wrong message to send to the coach and to the rest of the team when all of this comes out and you're asking to leave after 2 games behind Bruno Fernandes. Like, I get it, but it's too much. It's too much too quick to make those kinds of demands. On the flip side, I think there's a point where he's going to have to let go of Casemiro and put Mainoo in there, and I think it will work better. I don't think it'll be worse, because I look at it and I can go to a lot of things, but I look at Casemiro a lot of times playing and I go, I'm not sure he's giving 100%. When he's doing those early slides, I don't find that to be maximum effort. I find that to be lazy defending. And I go, that's like unfocused, lazy defending. So there's an argument to be made there that like, yeah, it might be out of position, but are you gonna get less out of Cobby from putting him in there? But it's not my call. And at the same time, I don't think any of the reasons preclude the fact that a player should always give 100% maximum effort and just focus on make the manager pick you because you are undroppable, and that will get you on the pitch no matter what. He will move players out of position for you. He will compromise for you if you are that good, you are that focused, and you can make him think that way. You will for other players. He does it for other people. I mean, I think Dallo is not the best player, but
Nope.
Ruben will get him on the pitch because he's got something which goes under the radar, which is the engine factor. He is probably the most physical player in the team, getting up and down quicker, faster, speed, 90 minutes all the time, up there with Bruno, right? And, people can call it the Portuguese tax, but if it just so happens that the two Portuguese players are the fittest in the squad, well, that's why they're playing every week. So, he will compromise on the things he wants to do if you prove he values physicality, he values hard work, and he values the undying effort more than almost anything else because he thinks those are the intangibles you can't live without. And he will compromise if you show that. And so I think Cobby it has a responsibility to earn his place in that team too. And some of it's on him. At the same time, if the results don't go the right way, then you start to ask some questions about things like the Casemiro thing, where there's a bit of like a red flag, not a red flag, but like
I
I
know what you
feel
mean.
like something's not working there. So couldn't you make a change in that position? Those are my thoughts on it. I go kind of back and forth in that way.
I think Kobe's ability to sense danger is what might scare me to put him in instead of
Sure.
Casemiro. Don't get me wrong, not that Casemiro deals with danger correctly, but at least he senses it. Whereas
Right.
sometimes I feel like Kobe's a second behind and then the
Yep.
runner's already in the box. You know what I mean? Like the opposing team's already got a runner in the box and Kobe figured out, oh, whoops, that was supposed to be my guy.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I think we've heard both managers, Ten Hag and Amorim, mention, oh, Kobe played a lot better when he's closer to the other team's goal.
Yeah.
All you're saying there is that he's not really helping much in positionally and in stopping danger. Do you get what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's
Yep.
really what you're saying when you say he's better when he's closer to the other team's goal, because you're saying he's not really, he's
Yes.
not really
Yeah.
performing near our goal. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely not his ball reception or turning or dribbling. So you're definitely talking about
Yep.
out of possession, right?
Yep.
And that's what makes me nervous about that, about bringing him in for Casemiro. Not that I think Casemiro reacts the right way after he senses danger, but he does sense danger.
Sure.
And then also Casemiro, that people aren't given value to. And again, earlier in this video, I think I made it clear. I don't think Casemiro is the right player for us in the long run. But something that he brings that adds a lot of value is his headers in on corners.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. In the box,
Offensive,
the height, and yeah.
exactly. And he fights for those headers. I mean, he really goes for it. I think he's the reason why
True.
we scored the last game, right? Like it was his header, the first goal in the Burnley game.
Um.
I think it was. I think it might have got it was counted as an own goal because it deflected, I think. I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah. 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 You're right. Yes. 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 You're right. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That was his. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it
Correct.
was
And
his header.
that is a fair point. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's done that
Especially when our own keeper's been very weak in the box too. It's something that we haven't been able to
it,
compromise much on.
I,
Right.
I honestly think that it's a coin flip between him and
Mm.
Ugarte, and I think that wins the coin flip. Like I think Amarim
It
goes,
could well be.
we
Yeah.
suck on corners, and we need somebody who's going to help us on corners, and that's the guy. Like,
True. I can
um,
understand that.
hey, I made you say something about Casemiro over Ugarte. I think I,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
for me, this video
I
has
think you
already
win.
accomplished
Yeah.
the goal.
No, I agree with you on that. It's sensible. It makes sense to me. Yeah.
By the way, I do think Ugarte is someone I'd rather have when we're in our pressing shape and we're out of
Yeah.
possession. Like that is the
Yep.
guy who's definitely, I mean, definitely intercepting more balls and getting more
Oh yeah.
turnovers for us. Definitely.
Yep.
But but again, I always like I told you before when we've had text message exchanges that what do you call it? Like for me, it's a pick your poison type of deal. Neither one of them is ideal for me. So one more thing I wanted to ask you, man, that's been on my brain, and again, because I know that you do know what's going on a little bit behind the scenes. I've always been wondering, do we have a data company like a Jamestown Analytics, like the one that Brighton uses? I know Tony Bloom owns them, but they're such a fantastic data company that obviously Brighton's always recruiting the right way. And now Como, who also uses them, is climbing up the Serie A table, recruiting from them players like Nico Paz, who's over there. Do we have a company that we're working with that I just can't find online, no matter how much research we do? Or are we trying to build one in house? And is that why we brought that Mercedes guy over? Do you know anything about any of this kind of stuff? And what can you share with us if you do know anything?
Yeah, they're definitely trying to enhance what we have in house. There's been times in the past where they've sort of looked at partnerships and contacts with data companies and other groups on like individual processes and things like that that they've wanted to do, like but not really under this management, not really on this ownership, this new group. They really want it to be in-house. They think United should have the ability. And one of the things there is that there's an understanding as well that given United's stature, they can't really do what Brighton do anyway. Like there's a point to having data, but Brighton's whole business model has to be based on finding these tons of these young gems from different countries and all of that, and buying them and developing them up and selling them on. United don't necessarily have the time or the ability to operate in the same way. So in some sense, you don't need as much. And instead of going, how do we capture everybody in every country and find every possible player so we can pick out all of these young stars, it's kind of understood that we just need to have the proper team in house to look at what do we need and who is the best player to solve it, and that can be done with a smaller, more focused group. And we want good data so we don't make mistakes, but to a degree the transfers can be somewhat obvious. And I think even for most big clubs, most of the times the transfers is very, very rarely are they some unknown, you know, player. And occasionally they get one, usually from the academy or from one of the lower leagues in England. They could pick somebody up that turns into something kind of special. But they don't feel it requires the same scope that you might have at a lower club. That's their whole business model essentially. And so they're trying to develop it in house in alignment with a more narrow focused scouting and recruitment approach to say, this is what we need. Who's the best player performing right now in Europe and England? Who are the best guys? And let's make sure we pick one that's actually going to work. And it's a little more simplistic approach, but probably more what United need than anything else.
And then my last question is a concern of mine, actually, is that I know in the last 2 or 3 seasons we were linked to Suzuki, the goalkeeper. I forgot his first name. And then you got Bayender. Other than Onana, I'm just going to chalk up Onana as an Eric Ten Hag, um, you know,
Sure.
something he wanted. But our scouts wanted Bayender and Suzuki. Suzuki is actually not doing that great, and he still plays in a weaker league, I believe. And last I checked on him was like a season and a half ago, and I was like, oh, he's actually not doing that great. And Bayender, we already see, like, to be honest with you, that guy's actually not doing that bad. But
Yeah.
the things he's bad at are like vital. You can't be
Yeah.
bad at those things, right?
Yeah.
How do we? How you? I'm just going to ask you. How can you trust that it's not the same scouts that picked out? Is it Senna Lemens? Lemans?
Senna Lemons. Yeah.
Yeah, lemons. Sure.
We, we
How
finally
do
got it.
how do we know, or what makes you positive that it's not the same scouts, it's not the same guy? Because obviously that gentleman's eye wasn't the greatest. And I don't think they're. I think, and that's the thing. I think 2 years ago we were operating as a scout based recruitment, not much of a data analytics
Hmm.
type of recruitment. How do we know that it's not the same guys, and I don't need to worry that they just bought another lemon, even though his name
Yeah.
is Lemons?
Yeah. Well, they essentially the biggest change from 2 years ago when we were looking at all these keepers and making the replacement for David De Gea is that um, the whole department is headed up by Wilcox and Vivell. And anybody you speak with will tell you that Wilcox has some of like the best eyes in football. So even if somebody's been suggested, he's pretty good at measuring whether they're worth anything or any good or not. Essentially, there's a lot of trust in individuals when you have a director of football. That's always going to be the case as well. They've got to know what they're doing. They've got to be able to pick from the names presented and say, that guy, something about him is not going to work for me, but I like that one. The director of football is always going to have to do a little bit of that just based on observation. But definitely there has been a lot more data pushed into the signings themselves. A lot more data pushed into the signings themselves. And I think that we're kind of seeing that in the way that we recruit, where sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes the obvious one is because it is the obvious one. And it's like, that's just the best player. So I think it's a different approach to how we've been recruiting to in the past, where who knows who was pointing out some of them. I mean, there were some very weird things said by scouts, I can tell you that, and weird suggestions over the years, which you're going to get when you have 400 scouts or 300 scouts, and that's part of it. Is who knows who even suggested it and how the data was collated, how it was organized, how it was presented, how it was funneled from a big list into a small list. How did we go through 650 right backs and end up with Wan-Bissaka? You know what I mean? Like, you can have all the data, but I'm not even insulting him. It's just like, how did that happen? How did you get to that one guy? That whole process was different. So a lot fewer like just putting tons of names in a hat and somehow popping out with 5 of them, and more like looking at what the data tells us about who we should be looking at, and then looking at them, like flip it around. Who should we be looking at? Let's watch them. Are they any good? Let's do it. And so I think it's flipped around in that respect, and with different people interpreting that data, I think you have a better odds of success with this.
I'm looking forward to actually seeing him play. I don't
Yeah,
know
me
if he's
too.
going to get into the City game, but
I hope so.
it's it would be man, it would be what is it?
It's
What do they
high
call it? Like
pressure, but
yeah, man, it's trial by fire. What is it like?
yeah, yeah,
I
trial
forgot the
by
phrase.
fire, exactly. Yep,
It's yeah, it's going to be a yeah. It's like here's a first game derby. There you go.
yep.
Like
Enjoy. Good luck.
welcome to Manchester.
Yep.
It's yeah.
What a
I don't
way
know.
though. What a way though.
I
You can become a hero overnight in a game like that.
it'll
So,
say it'll say so much about what Amorim thinks about his goalkeepers, and
yep.
that's another reason why I don't think it'll happen.
Sure.
I just think it would, it would be one of those moments where it's like Amorim spoke really loud today.
Yeah. Yep.
It's,
Yeah. True.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be 2-3 games
It
in.
could well be. It could well
When is the first FA Cup draw? Do you know?
Oh man, isn't it in like November or something? I don't remember.
Okay,
Isn't
no,
it
he won't
around
wait. He
Christmas? I
won't.
swear it's in like
y-
December or something. It's quite
Yeah, he
late.
won't wait that long. He won't wait that long. It'll be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be 3 games in my opinion. And I think Sheshko will probably get his first start. How did he? I wonder how he did today. Actually, right after we get off this call, I'm going to go check on Sheshko. Unfortunately, I did not have a way to watch the Slovenia Sweden game, even though I thought
It's
it'd be a nice
difficult,
game to
isn't it?
watch. I don't have Fox Soccer Plus. I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I have everything but that, and I miss out on like 2 games a year because of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and
Yeah.
then the
Just
USA
once in a
games
while.
tomorrow. Are you interested in Team
I
USA at
when I
all? Or
can, I just it's hard for me to keep up sometimes with everything, man. It's I try my best. I am interested, but I have trouble keeping up. I'm not gonna lie on these times. So sometimes I'm like, all
me
right,
too.
international break is my time to get my weekends to do some stuff.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I'm not planning to watch anything tomorrow, even though the game's tomorrow, but I am recording it in case I hear that it's a 5-0 blowout, then I'm
Yeah,
going to sit
yeah.
down and watch it,
Fair. Yeah. Good point. Yep.
Um, all right, man. So I think we should wrap it up here. I thank
Cool.
you so much for giving me the
Of course,
opportunity
man.
to come on and talk to you, dude. I really appreciate it. I've been watching for such a long time. Um,
Love it.
and I just want to say, anybody who's a part of my channel, if you guys haven't gone to the United Muppeteers, the link will be down below in my comments on my channel. Go over and subscribe. James's channel is growing, and we're I think your goal is what, 50K right now?
Yeah,
Is
we're
it?
gonna go for 50. We want to get there. Yep.
Yeah, I really hope you do, and I think you will. I think you will. I think this season is going to be a great season, which is, and I hope everybody watching this remembers who was telling you guys that this was going to be a great season when everybody else
Yeah.
was telling you that the whole building's on fire.
Yep.
Okay, just
Yep.
remember that for me.
Yep.
Um,
For sure. Yeah, well, thank
thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it. And yes, for everybody watching, obviously, like and subscribe over here, but definitely head over to Samix's channel as well. As a wonderful guy, wonderful channel, and really, really good high quality content as well. So make sure you do that.
Thank you, James,
So,
and thank you, everybody.
yes,
We'll
thank
see
you
you
all. See
soon.
you later. Have a good one.